Let's dive into the world of data center innovation with the iMasons podcast, discovering the people leading the industry revolution. My name is Romain Trenchant. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Dina Nassar, who's recently published her PhD results in the effectiveness of policies, best practices, and certifications on sustainability. Let's get right into it. Hi, Dina. Well, first of all, welcome to the podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you on it today. We've been talking about it for a long time, and I know your studies have been quite thorough and methodical, so it's taken us some time to bring you in, but it's a real pleasure. We've got to compact about 3 years of studies in 20 minutes. It's not going to be easy, but before we do this, can you maybe give us an introduction of yourself and the field of studies that you've gone through?
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. And yes, it's finally happening, this podcast. We've been talking about this for a while. A little bit of introduction about myself is I'm a civil engineer, and I've worked before in environmental assessments and site engineering. And 3 years ago, I entered the field of data centers, starting my PhD, where I tackled the sustainability and policies for data centers. And I as well worked in sustainable consultancy for data centers in projects in Europe and in the Middle East. So basically, I focused more on the policies, what's in the data centers industry of policies, the best practices, the minimum energy performances, which are increasing with more net zero ambitions, and with the increase as well of the data centers and evolution of the capacities with the introduction of the AI, the IoT, and now the AI is playing a huge role in evolution of the capacities for data centers. For example, now we can see more sizes for our projects to be 5 gigawatts, 4.7 gigawatts, which are things that we never seen before. So the policies are now taking more place. We are having more best practices or certifications to ensure that we are tackling the sustainability and we are being in line with the carbon net zero ambitions. For that reason, I focused more on what's in the certifications and if these certifications are actually measuring or genuinely measuring the environmental sustainability for data centers or not.
I mean, that's fantastic. What a program. Can you take me through what sorts of certifications you've looked at, and maybe we'll have the time to dive down into one of them?
Okay. So basically, we have different holistic certifications that assesses or examines data centers, such as BREEAM and LEED certifications that are considered to be holistic certifications that measures sustainability. And one of the aspects is the environmental sustainability for data centers. And we can see that BREEAM is more known here or used in the UK and Ireland. However, LEED is more globally used and in a global level. LEED is more used in data centers field as well.
Dina, you've been talking about the LEED certifications, going into more globally accepted certifications that people have been undertaking. But today we're going to be focusing on one important point of the certifications. Are they really leading to sustainability improvements for the organizations that undertake the certification? Can you take us through that?
Yes, definitely. That's one of the key questions that I've been tackling through my PhD. Are these certifications actually reflecting the true environmental savings for data centers or not? So before I answer this question, I will give an overview about LEED and how does it work. So we have different categories in LEED that are being assessed relating to transportation, energy, water, and so on. And in each category, we have the prerequisites and the credits. The prerequisites are practices that are mandatory, and the credits are best practices that can be followed, and for each credit we can have a specific score, and this will contribute to the total score, which is over 110. And whenever we have higher scores, we can have a higher certification level, which can contribute more, or can be considered that it contributes more to the environment. However, does this certification level is the true reflection, yes or no? That's the question that we need to answer. So what I did is we built a model that calculates the environmental savings by data centers that are following these LEED credits. And the results was that there are some credits that are reflected to have high scores. However, they do not really contribute to data centers. So here we can see some overestimation, and some credits that actually contribute hugely to the data centers, and they are underestimated and have like low scores. So as a result, we can have a high score and a high level, but we are not really contributing to the sustainability for data centers. And in the contrary, similarly, we can have like a low score, but we are using the credits that contribute more to the sustainability for data centers. So it's not really reflecting, and this goes for reasons that LEED or these kind of certifications assesses or examines data centers similar to traditional buildings. And that's not the case, because data centers are heavy energy consumers. And there is a huge variance as well. Another reason that there is a huge variance between the contribution for each credit. For example, there are credits that can contribute to a very low savings that's less than 1 ton. However, others to thousands of tons, but there is a huge difference. And so the scores are not really granular in showing how sustainable data centers are. And also one of the reasons that we have one scheme or one scoring system, other than it's similar to the one that's for traditional building, it also doesn't work for data centers, because one size doesn't fit all in data centers. We have different types, we have different functions, we have different locations. So each one could have different best practices that can contribute to it, and different environmental savings and percentages for environmental savings. So one score for it doesn't fit, like one size doesn't fit all in this kind of schemes.
So clearly we can't compare apple and pears on the same scale based on what I'm hearing here. However, could you give us like some specific examples of the types of measures or the types of credits that will either advantage data centers or disadvantage data centers in the end scoring?
Okay, yes. For example, the credits that are related to transportation, some scores, some credits, they have like more than 10% of the scores. However, like in some data centers, small data centers, we don't have a lot of people commuting to theirs compared to traditional building or a residential building. So 10% of the score for residential building maybe makes sense. However, 10%, over 10% of scores in a credit that contribute in a less 1%, and these are numbers from the model, less than 1% for the environmental savings is a huge overestimating for the credits. And however, facing that, we have some energy credits that can contribute more than 50% for the energy savings, and it has less than 5% for the from the scores. So we can see the variances and the overestimating and underestimation for the credits. So as a result, I wouldn't generalize that all, for example, gold certifications are bad, but in some cases that we actually studied, there are gold certifications. We compared them to certified, and by here I want to just to make it clear that the certification levels in LEED, we have certified, silver, gold, and platinum. The least certification level is certified, and we go on. So a gold is considered to be a high certification level in LEED. So we took 2 case studies. One is certified and one is gold. And we studied the environmental savings of each. And then we saw that the certified data center has better environmental savings compared to the gold one. And the difference between them is almost 12%. So a high certification level doesn't always mean you are contributing better to the environment.
It's an incredible story to say the least. We all want to see our industry succeed in being more sustainable, use less resources as we continue to grow. What are the things that, because the score does not always reflect the true sustainability nature of those organizations, what are the things that what are the things you've seen or maybe learn about that would enable those organizations to still make the sustainable choices, regardless of what maybe is indicated in the lead's final score?
Well, yes. So I think we need to just look more than just the score. So to look at the specific credits that actually contribute to the environmental sustainability. What are the credits that will help the environment? What are the credits that we can save more energy and have more carbon savings? And we also can go beyond than just the credits or the requirements in LEED, because as I said, more than 90%, or maybe I didn't mention the number, but like more than 90% of the credits are similar to the ones in the traditional buildings. So there are some requirements, more like high levels in the best practices for data centers. We can look more into more specific best practices for data centers. For example, I also worked with some companies that are willing to have the compliance with the EN 5600-5-2, which is the maturity model that has a bunch of best practices for data centers that are more specific to IT, power, and so on. So we can look more into what are the need for the data centers and just beyond what is required, beyond the scores. So what really contribute to the data centers. And I'm happy to share this to anyone to know more about it.
That's fantastic, and I think your help would be very much appreciated by a number of us out there that probably haven't looked at it in depth and probably want to make sure that we still have a sustainable impact. So taking the reverse, we were talking about companies that maybe want to take the LEED certifications or really want to understand the true impact they're having on the sustainability agenda. What about the people looking into data center and being able to compare the different certificates or actually true impact on sustainability? What's your advice on that front?
Okay, I think for people that are looking for more environmental savings and more sustainable data centers, they can look just beyond the scores or the certification that is given and look into what actually the credits that are given. Is it the one that has least environmental savings in data centers or the one that actually make impact in data centers? So just look a little bit beyond what's the badge, which is the certification level.
That's great to hear and absolutely great advice. We know the certifications are fairly new. A few years ago, they didn't exist, or were not as prevalent as what we see them today. Where do you think they need to evolve? What needs to happen for them to become maybe more accurate, more relevant? What's your viewpoint after studying them for 3 years?
I think one thing is first make them more specific to data centers, and I'm here just talking about these holistic certifications such as LEED or Prime, to make it more specific for data centers and to make the scores more relevant to the environmental sustainability because there is a misalignment between the scores and the environmental sustainability. As I mentioned, there is overestimation and underestimation. To make the score more granular and and to have different scores for different types of data centers. For example, one of the things that I have suggested in my PhD, to have different scores for different type of data centers, because I've applied the model on 5 case studies with different data centers type, location, and size. So we can have more a picture how different data centers work and what's the good for each one. So yeah, I think.
Now, this is very interesting, and definitely an area that I've heard time and time again is evolving and being pushed forward. We've talked about certifications. What about the policies?
Well, the policies, I did have research about and I've also worked in policies for data centers globally. So what I can say is that there is a huge introduction for policies for data centers, especially after 2019, as I mentioned, because there is an increase in data centers, and also there is the increase in the net zero ambitions. So the policies are now needed more to be an incentive to ensure that these are aligned, the data centers are aligned with these ambitions. So there is a huge introduction for policies, and I would classify that we have the main the energy performance policies that can require, for example, specific PUE. For example, we have the energy efficiency law, I think, in Germany, which requires to have a PUE, for example, 1.5. And in such benchmark policies, I can see always that PUE is the star, because that's the most metric that we talk about in data centers. However, we now are moving on to know that the sustainability in data centers is beyond the PUE. And other types of policies or standards, we have the best practices. For example, similar to the EU Code of Conduct that has the best practices for the IT, for the cooling, for the power, and so on. But what I can see now, that we are having also more the policies that requires or mandate reporting, which I think is going to be the game changer, because reporting is going to start to define what good looks like in data centers. Because regardless, despite that we have the policies and we have these best practices, but similar to the to what I did in PhD or the certification, we don't know if they are genuinely considering data centers, because we don't tackle or we don't follow how much we are contributing to the environment. So now with reporting, we can have a benchmark. We can know more about the metrics. So for example, in the Energy Efficiency Directive now, they are mandating to start reporting with the IT energy efficiency, the IT utilization, the WUE, the CUE, and all these metrics. So from here, we can have more view about what's there and what's not, and to have more transparency and have a benchmark. And after that, we can have eliminate the best practices that are there and they do not contribute to the data centers. And we can have more definition to what good looks like in data centers. So yeah, that's the what's in the market and the policies, and what's in the future and how it's going to look like.
And so I guess all of the points you've been talking about have been nicely summarized into the thesis that you've written as part of your PhD. So I know you and I have talked about the fact that it's soon to be published. So we'll make sure to follow through as soon as the link becomes available. Can you tell us, and for whoever listens, where they might be able to find your thesis?
Yes, the thesis is gonna soon be published in a journal paper, which is the IEEE Sustainable Computing, and hopefully it's gonna be published in a couple of weeks, and it's gonna be open, accessible for everyone to read it.
That's fantastic. I'm really happy to see that such good research is actually going to be open to everybody. But at the end of the day, there was only one expert that actually wrote it. So I'm glad to have you on the podcast today. Final question for me: what's next for you?
Well, for me now, I'm currently working as well in the research for assessing sustainable reporting, because this is as well an important aspect now, because everyone now started reporting. So as we can see more disclosures, we need to assess, are these disclosures following the right methodologies? Is everything is being disclosed? What's disclosed? What's not? What's next? So how the sustainable reporting to be assessed? That's a research I'm working on now, and I will talk later more about it when I have more mature results. And I'm also looking for my next role in organizations that are willing to see the genuine sustainability for data centers. And I've been having several conversations with some organizations, and I'm happy to talk more about this. In my email address.
Yeah, as I'm trying to move the cameras around, so you've got the right person with the right email address now. We're just going to flash up Dina's LinkedIn profile as well if you want to reach out to her. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast today. What a great conversations, and such an interesting field of studies. So thank you again for coming on the podcast. For all of the people listening to it, if you want to hear more about what the field of Dina, the field of studies from Dina, if you want to reach out to her, please do so. If you want to hear anything else on this podcast, if you've got any interesting topics that you want to bring up, or you actually want to feature on it, please reach out directly to the iMasons team. And we look forward to providing you some more content very soon. So thanks very much, everybody. Thank you, Dina, and see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you so much.